Hi everyone, my name is Marcus and you're watching the Reef Nerd YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk about how I'm converting my tank over to run primarily on a calcium reactor and transitioning away from two-part. So as you might know, I recently set up and installed the Pacific Sun AC-Nano calcium reactor on my tank. I did a setup video on that. There should be a link to that floating somewhere around here. Since setting up the calcium reactor, I've been very slowly acclimating my tank to it and gradually weaning it off two-part. So I want to show you how I've been doing that and what the results are so far. But first up, let's take a bit of a step back and see how my tank works. The tank is a 90 by 55 by 55 centimeter and includes a fairly large acrylic sump down below. It's a Neptunian Cube K90. The total system volume is about the 300 litre mark. My lighting is provided by two Kessel A360Xs with narrow beam reflectors, mounted in an Aquatic Life DX18 hybrid fixture with 4 T5s, 2 ATI Blue Plus and 2 Giesmann actinic bulbs. For filtration, I run the Rain 2 Algae Turf Scrubber by Santa Monica Filtration, a small reactor running Blue Life phosphate resin, and a NIOS Quantum 120 skimmer. I also have heaps of biomedia in the form of Mantis blocks and Marine Pure blocks. I also run a Mantis Activa carbon block. I run a smart AWC auto water change system by Auto Aqua. It does double duty as my approximately 2% daily water change and my auto top off. I run an Avast Marine K1 calc stirrer and dose 2 litres of kalkwasser into my tank from that per day. It's plumbed into my self-filling RODI reservoir, so other than adding a scoop of calc powder to the reactor every other week or so, it's basically set and forget. This was initially how I handled dosing on my tank when I started. However, my consumption quickly outgrew what kalkwasser can cover. I still dose the kalkwasser because it's great for tank pH, but once I could no longer dose any more calc due to the volume exceeding what my tank could evaporate per day, I started dosing a balanced two-part. I've used various two-part additives such as DIY Randy's recipe, Aquaforest Component 1+2+3+, Reef Anabolics Complete Elements. I also dose the full Reef Anabolics Trace Elements range. Dosing is handled by my KH lab with a Core 7th by Pacific Sun. This is a fully automated solution that tests your water alkalinity and dynamically changes the amount of two-part dosed accordingly in order to constantly match the consumption with the dosage. As at Christmas Day 2019, my required two-part dosage was at just under 190 ml per day. That's on top of 2 litres of kalkwasser. So as you can see, when you have a tank this size with limited space in and around the sun, and dosing is being measured in litres per week, it can become problematic. The cost of large volumes of two-part can be significant. There is a large variation in cost between the most premium and easy and the most bulk DIY options on the market, obviously. But there is a time and effort trade-off in there too. A big factor for me is that I don't really like the maintenance task of refilling my two-part reservoirs every single week, and setting up a larger reservoir that would last me multiple weeks is not an option due to my space requirements. As you may have already seen, I had a custom Hamali dosing reservoir made to absolutely maximize the available space in my sump, but even with that, each cylinder holds 2.2 litres, and that's just not enough for my tank's consumption. However, perhaps the biggest factor for me is that I'm a bit of a gear junkie and I've always loved the idea of a calcium reactor. You're basically melting coral's skeleton back into its component parts for your coral to reabsorb and grow into new coral. There's just something really cool about converting dead coral into live coral. I've been preparing for adding this calcium reactor for quite a long time. Obviously, this space has been dedicated to it, and I've selected the Pacific Sun AC-Nano both because it perfectly fits in the space available, and secondly because I really like how it includes a smart controller that not only measures CO2, but controls the CO2 solenoid and doses the effluent all in a single package. This unit also ties into the Core 7th smart controller as well, so yay for ecosystems. So how have I been converting my tank to the calcium reactor and off of two-part for the majority of its dosing? Well, the answer to that is slowly. Starting at an initial effluent flow rate from the calcium reactor into the tank of just 200 ml per hour, every day or every other day, I've been increasing that dosing from the reactor by just about 25 ml per hour. After approximately 20 days, I've reached 550 ml per hour, which is where it's currently set. It is here that it appears as though we're getting really close to offsetting the majority of my 2-part dosage. As you can see from this chart, between the 25th of December and the 14th of January, my 2-part dosage, as controlled by the KH Lab and the Core 7, has gone from 187 ml to 68 ml. I will continue increasing the calcium reactor dosage very slowly until that 2-part dosage gets lower, somewhere in the less than 10 ml per day range. At that point, I will monitor it for a while and ensure it has fully stabilized. Just like we saw in the results of my recent bacteria experiment, which saw my tank's consumption increase by 25%, the KH Lab and the Core 7 has done an amazing job keeping my parameters stable. You can see on this chart that my average alkalinity was 7.89, which is really close to the set point that I've configured of 7.8. My overall goal here is to dial the calcium reactor dosage to the point where it's contributing 99% of the dosing and keep the Core 7 dosing alkalinity only at a tiny rate, just sipping a few mil here and there as a buffer against the low-end swing of my daily range. If that consumption increases beyond a few mil a day, that will be a sign to me to increase the dosage on the calcium reactor, which is done through the touchscreen on the controller in 25 ml per hour increments. All the spare dosing heads on the Core 7 that aren't being used for the alkalinity testing of the KH Lab or that single alkalinity component will be used at this stage for supplementing trace elements with the Reef Anabolics trace range. However, I'm keen to ICP test my tank again in a few months to see how my trace element levels are faring with the addition of the calcium reactor, which does contribute some trace itself. So that's all for today. I hope you found this video helpful. Please subscribe for new content. I put out a new video every week. My name is Marcus, and you've been watching the Reef Nerd YouTube channel. Bye for now.